shoes to fill here tonight because I was here last year and there was a very able chairman that chaired it last year, Mr. Peter Barr here, and he did an absolutely fantastic job. And they said they were going to get an even better chairman this year, but he couldn't come tonight. He phoned me last week and I said, well, I'll see. So Peter's been a worker for many years, a local school teacher. What he didn't teach, he was mentioning, it was maths, English, geography and sports. So what more can you need? And he was telling me earlier on tonight, I think it's a great bit of history, that him and his wife framed this picture behind me in the barn about 40 years ago. So that's a great bit of framing, I would say. So we're in the frame. So Peter, you're in the frame now.
First of all, I'd like to say it's a great privilege to be asked to do the Immortal Memory at the Burns Night Supper here at Killiecrankie. Over the last few weeks I've been spending a certain amount of time doing research into Robert Burns. I went down to the museum at Alloway, and I must say, what a great place to go to learn about Robert Burns. It's a wonderful museum full of a tremendous amount of information about Robert Burns, if you would expect. Also the house that his father built, and that was a very interesting experience going down there to Alloway. My purpose was to try to identify some of the influences that helped to develop his remarkable God-given talents. Bear with me. Not surprisingly, the influence that I'd rate as number one is William, Robert's father, who ensured that his firstborn son, education was vital for the boy as a starting point in life. Despite long hours of toil upon the farm, William fully justified the sacrifice. He even wrote a book for the moral instruction of his family. A printed copy is on display in Alloway for all to see. John Murdoch, a teacher as influence number two, gave of his time to teach Robert along with others from the age of 6 until he was 9. Robert learned to read and write and memorize some Bible passages in full, but one particular book he enjoyed was called The Life of Hannibal. His understanding of the Latin language was rated poor, but he knew what was meant by omnia vincit amor. At age 9, the time for Robert to labour on the farm was now, to weed, thresh corn, milk cows, and subsequently to walk behind the plough. Influence number 3. William Wallace was a real hero, we are told, of Robert Burns, who read about him at school when only 13 years old. His story will inspire me until the floodgates of life shut in eternal rest. Robert said Wallace was indeed one of Scotland's very best. Influence number 4 were many years' experience gained working on the land, with so many aspects of the environment always close at hand. Robert studied nature in the minutest detail and wrote about a mouse, a hare, a mountain daisy, hummingbees, and also about a louse. Holding the plough was a favourite situation for poetic composition, and so Robert Burns became ploughman poet of the nation. Influence number 5 were the many women that he chose, from young Nell Kilpatrick to Agnes MacLehose. Even when rejected by his amorous advances, and Robert certainly took a considerable number of chances, he drew female inspiration for his poetic output over many years, some of which was certainly not for women's ears. Banned for 2 centuries in England and the USA, lewd, the bawdy best of Robert Burns, is available on Amazon today. $59 download onto your Kindle. Without doubt, Robert Burns was something of a charmer. In 1788, he met his match and married one Jean Armour. Of all the women for whom he did fall, Jean was the greatest influence of all. He loved her passionately as his very own. His poems for Jean have an energy reserved for her alone. For 2 years after Robert's father William died in 1784, the farm in Mosgiel ran at a loss, leaving Robert and his brother Gilbert very poor. So much so, he opted for a real game breaker and sought employment working overseas on a plantation in Jamaica. But membership of the Masons stepped in to provide the chance he took to have a collection of his poems published in a book. And so the Masons become influence number 6 upon our list. Through them, the first volume of Burns' poems were published in April 1786. And 1 year later, Robert was again in publishing heaven when the first Edinburgh edition of his poems appeared in February 1787. And thus the Masons made the declaration that they discovered and led forth the genius of the greatest poet in the nation. Jamaica's loss was Scotland's gain, forsooth. In 1787, he was knighted by the sword that once belonged to Robert Bruce. Robert's love of music is influence number 7 on the list. He travelled far and wide, gathering songs which others may have missed. They appear in 6 volumes of old Scottish songs that are a musical treasure, marked by a wild happiness of expression that will endure forever. Robert played his fiddle with a consummate skill. He could hear a ballad once and reproduce the tune at will. Funnily, but as a child, his teacher said he was unfit to croon, his ear was rated dull, and his voice was often out of tune. Moving on, and next to relate, we come to influence number 8. In 1789, a government employee Robert Burns became, adding the title exciseman to his name. He travelled 10 parishes of Dumfriesshire by horse, which over many years provided a severe test for his health, of course. But this was one of the most creative periods, so they say. For example, Tam O'Shanter was written even in a day. You know what I mean?
It didn't take me that long to do it.
And finally, you'll be pleased to hear, the last in line features religion as influence number 9. Every Sunday throughout the life, Robert set aside his work and twice attended services at the local Presbyterian kirk. Religion, he said, should be a natural, spontaneous feeling of joy expressed through love, music and song, as he did ever since he was a boy. We are here to celebrate the birth of Robert Burns on January the 25th, 1759, a man who grew to be the greatest Scottish poet of all time. His poems appear in 25 languages, including Russian and Japanese. Statues honour him from Aberdeen to Winnipeg, Canberra to Dumfries. 47 books are listed under Robert Burns on Amazon today, an outstanding tribute to the farmer's son born and raised in Alloway. Before the floodgates of life shut in eternal rest, he said, I'll be respected more 100 years from now, after I am dead. Indeed, you are well respected, ploughman poet Robert Burns. From your poems, songs and verse we learn so much about your loves and life, success, hard work, not without a large degree of strife. On July the 21st, 1796, far too young you passed away, leaving memories that are with us now and every day. As Scotland's most famous literary son, you are more than words upon a page, an inspiration for all the world. for every nationality and age. We welcome you to this, our annual Burns Night ceremony, and raise our glasses in a toast to your immortal memory.
Peter there for an absolutely first class Immortal Memory there. Yeah, I think it's really hard things with you. Very difficult to get the balance just right, and I think you just hit the nail on the head. So thank you very much. That was really very good.
Immortal Memory, Peter. Peter and I were neighbours. We bump into each other now and then. And Peter went about doing Immortal Memory in the way only Peter could do. Informed himself, decided what to leave out, what to put in, and actually produced a very, very unique and interesting and different, which is really difficult to do at Burns Supper, an Immortal Memory that kept their imagination going from start to finish and kept us thinking about Robert Burns from start to finish. And much appreciated, Peter. Brilliant.